Working Americans are struggling to pay their bills during the pandemic, but Congress just opened up their checkbooks to give the military-industrial complex another $740 billion. And at the same time they did it, the war pimps, the war pigs, I like to call them, they want a war all the time. The Liz Cheney, the Dick Cheney crowd, who now has become a Democrat crowd, where you have Democrats buying into this whole story. We have to stay in Afghanistan forever. And why? Because the same Democrats that voted, though, we're not going to pull out of Afghanistan, follow the money on those Democrats. Go ahead, pick it up.
Right. We have this Democrat-controlled House Armed Services Committee last week came up with a new budget for the military that they want to, get past $740 billion at a time when 31% of Americans weren't able to pay their mortgages this month. 30% last month couldn't pay because we're in a pandemic. They keep telling us there's not enough relief funds. We can't give you another stimulus check. We can't keep increasing unemployment. It'll make you needy. But we're going to write a $740 billion blank check to the military-industrial complex, to the Pentagon, because when it comes to war, when it comes to the military, there is always money to be found. When it comes to helping people, sorry,
let me tell you where it really lands. The media. The media is so much a part of this story. It's almost like we have a whole generation of people, of these young journalists coming out of journalism school, I suppose. Hell, I don't know if they have journalism school anymore, but they're coming out of journalism school, and they've been raised on an entire generation of news that surrounds Glee. What's happening to the actors in Glee? Who is Justin Bieber marrying today, or who is he hanging around with? So you have these, I call them journalists light. They aren't journalists. These are kids, I promise you, would not have made it through journalism school 25 years ago. And it's their lack of being able to look at a case like this and say, this is what we should be reporting. The military has $740 billion that they're giving away that, oh, by the way, is 15 times higher than the Russia military. It's half a dozen times higher than the Chinese military. There's nothing even close. We can't even use the weapons we have. We have 1,000 of everything. And the military at one point was saying we got too much here. But the Democrats, I love this. It used to be you and I would talk about a story like this. We'd talk about Republicans. Now it's the Democrats. The Democrats have bought into this war forever. Look, we were going to get out of Germany. We're taking 10,000 troops out of Germany, which seems like a good idea. We're taking our troops out of Afghanistan, which seems like a good idea. But the weapons industry, they don't like it. And now the Democrats, who make big money from them, they don't like it either.
Well, no, and as you pointed out, a lot of it is because the media gets this money too. These checks may not all go directly to the media. Some of them do, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Pentagon does pay Hollywood. They pay television producers to make these pro-military themes, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But this money,
a good story, by the way. We need to do this
absolutely.
Story.
But this money goes to these defense contractors who then, as we've talked about 100 times, turn that money to MSNBC, to CNN, and say, we're going to advertise products that your viewers can't even purchase.
Yeah.
But we're buying your loyalty with this money.
Polaris missile, okay? So you have Boeing, McDonnell Douglas advertising missiles. Are you going to go out and buy a missile? No. The reason MSNBC is covering the story, the reason they're doing the advertisement, they're getting a ton of money from the ad business, CNN making a ton of money from the military complex. That's why these idiots won't even cover a story as important as this. Glenn Greenwald, buddy, he's on their track.
Yes.
I think it's the best coverage I've seen of this problem. So, we can't expect anything from the media. We have to go other places to get stories like this, don't we?
Absolutely.
Farron Cousins, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
One of the few unanimous decisions by the House and Senate in recent passage of Donna's Law here in Florida. It's going to seek justice for survivors of child sex abuse for years to come. Legal journalist Molly Barrows is with me to talk about it. Tell us, first of all, who is Donna? Why they call this the Donna's Law? How does it all fit together?
She spearheaded this. Donna Hedrick is from Orlando, and she said she was abused by her choir teacher 2 weeks after her 15th birthday, and this was in the early 1970s. She didn't tell anybody about it for 40 years. And when she finally came forward, she suspected that there were other victims of this teacher, up to 5 other victims, and she couldn't do anything with her allegations and her accusations because the statute of limitations had passed. So she started a petition and basically got 30,000 signatures that got the attention of victims advocacy groups, as you saw, the state legislature, and they went ahead and moved forward with bipartisan support and passed this law, and bill rather, and then the governor signed it into law.
Yeah, it's similar to other statutes that have been passed around
Yes.
the country, and it's just the logical solution to it. What does this law do for survivors of sexual abuse?
Well, it gives them an option and a voice, because it is such a common tragedy actually to happen in this country, and sadly, most of them never really even reported at all. Or when they do finally report it, other states like Florida until recently had statute of limitations that kept them from being able to come forward. And what we do know also about predators who abuse children is that they continue to do it. And if you have one child that could potentially report it, or a person that's grown up and could report it, you could be preventing this person from abusing other children as well. So this is going to give victims a voice and an option when and if they are abused and are ready to come forward.
When this opened up in other states, the Catholic Church got a new 4,400 cases of sexual abuse, because it empowered people to say, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do something about it, and the impact was startling. So this is a big victory, isn't it?
Well, it is a big victory. It'll be interesting, though, because the law only applies to offenses that have been committed since July 1st, when this new law went into effect. So, those kids that have been abused as minors up until then are still subject to those statute of limitations. But from here on out, it's going to give victims and victim advocacy groups a lot more power. They're going to have some meat behind their threats, if you will. They're going to be able to pursue charges against these predators and perhaps take them off the streets for good. But there's still a long way to go, and it's just unbelievable. As you know, our own Kim Lambert is handling human trafficking cases, and it is just pervasive worldwide. But the vast majority of children that are abused, it happens before the age of 18. Most of them are girls, and it happens that they're being molested or abused by someone that they know, either an acquaintance or a family member. Yeah,
the human trafficking cases that we're working all over the country now, it's an eye-opener, because you start realizing that there's so much, it's so organized, that you start seeing the internet sites that know exactly what they're doing.
Yes.
They know exactly that they're part of trafficking. The big hotels, they know they're part of the trafficking. The airport, if you go to Atlanta Airport now, finally they were busted. They understood exactly what was going on when they saw people coming through traffic. So now you hear the announcements. If you suspect trafficking is taking place, report something. But this is, I think these human trafficking cases that we're working are going to open up a whole new consciousness of how this takes place. It's not just isolated abuse most of the time. It's not. And what you're seeing is perpetuation of more cases of isolated abuse, as well as the trafficking, because it starts on an individual basis as well. A lot of these victims of human trafficking were groomed for it, either by the current abuser or maybe by a previous abuser. Again, somebody in their family or an acquaintance. Maxwell, Exactly, who is now suing Epstein's estate to pay her legal bills. So that's why Epstein victims, if they're potentially are more in the state of Florida, can't come forward because it didn't go into effect. But isn't that an example of how badly we've dropped the ball? We take this animal predator, Epstein. He's an animal predator. There's no question. He's got all the animal predator qualities about him. And so the judge has the right to put him away forever. Instead, he does nothing to Epstein. He literally lets him go to jail when he wants to go to jail for a period of several months. And everybody around him got away with it. That's right. Everybody around him just walked away because of the way that we see political influence. I'm sure was part of this story too. There's part of the reason that she didn't have the right to do a lot of things she did up to now was because of the political influence. We just don't see the importance of what's happening here right in front of our eyes. Molly, thank you for joining me, okay?
Thanks, Pat.